Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the post-crisis chat, the Brave and the Bold edition. I'm your co-host, not Randy. I'm the other one, Cookie. The guy on the other side of the screen, that is my co-host, Randy.
Hello, everyone. If you're a first-time viewer, I want to welcome you to the channel. Please remember to like the video. Subscribe to the channel if you're liking what we're putting down, and hit that bell notification so you can be notified next week when we upload a new episode.
Yeah, it seems like such a small thing to do, but apparently it really does help the channel grow, and we're trying to make this sucker grow. So do all that stuff. And if you're not a first-time viewer, if this is your like millionth time back checking us out, you're one of those 14 subscribers that we possibly have. We want to welcome you back, and we're so thankful to have you here.
Hey, for the record, we're up to 45 subscribers now.
We're at 40. Oh, perfect, perfect. We're getting to the 50 point.
Yep. Also, please be advised that we are going to be talking about decades-old spoilers in the issue that we are discussing today. So the issue we're going to be discussing today is Swamp Thing number 40, written by Alan Moore, pencils by Steve Bissette, and inks by John Totlebon. And this gorgeous cover here is by Stephen Bissette and John Totlebon. I'm just gonna jump right in with this cover, dude. This cover is absolutely amazing. I love everything about it. Swamp Thing is really detailed. Batman looks menacing. Hawkman looks like he's about to F someone up. And I always love seeing the stranger on a cover.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with this cover at all. This is a really good cover. I'm becoming more of a Batman fan as I've been reading more Batman books lately. I'm getting into him, and I've always been a big fan of the Phantom Stranger. He's just like that obscure character that nobody knows, but I'm in love with. Hawkman, I've never been a big guy on, but he's a cool design. So it's like whenever he shows up on something, I like looking at him because there's just something cool about the costume.
Yeah, there really is. He looks very old timey.
Yeah, he's one of those characters that I've noticed you cannot update his look too much because it ruins it. Like I remember in the 90s, they tried updating him to make him look a little cooler, more, up to date and everything, and it didn't look good. I think it was like when they started doing the Hawk World stuff. Not a huge fan of Hawk World.
I also want to point out that we have a dead dinosaur looking defeated as Swamp Thing seems to be standing on the dinosaur triumphantly, which is a little weird because I feel like Swamp Thing normally doesn't, defeat dinosaurs, but obviously something's going on here.
I mean, yeah, I mean, like we've never had a chance to really see him fight a dinosaur, so it's like maybe this is how he would react if he met a dinosaur. He would just beat the crap out of it and stand triumphantly over it.
Yeah, that's kind of what the cover is implying here. But I also want to point out that this is the 50th anniversary of DC Comics. We got that big 50 right there on the top. And I also want to point out that this is a very special Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover. And we start with a quote from the Bible, Revelations 8:10. The third angel blew his trumpet, and a great star shot from the sky, flaming like a torch. The name of the star was Wormwood. And then, so this quote is from the final book in the Bible, Revelations, which is the same as the title of this issue, which is also known as the Apocalypse, prophesying the end of the world. Obviously, the title Revelations refers to the fact that the big confrontation, which Constantine has been preparing Swamp Thing for, is starting to be revealed. The verse is also referred to in the final issue of the four-part Kingdom Come miniseries written by Mark Waid and painted by Alex Ross. The plot of Kingdom Come bears some resemblance to a previously rejected miniseries proposal by DC Alan Moore called Twilight. And while legalities prevent Twilight from being published, Moore's proposal for it is worth searching for on the internet.
It is epically cool. It is definitely worth checking out. But I will be honest, I am glad we did not see that come to fruition because there was some very weird stuff that he had, like, set up for that, that was kind of creepy at times.
Alan Moore, very weird stuff, potentially creepy. This all tracks very much for Alan Moore's brand. So in this issue, we're jumping straight into the crisis. Red sky. The narrator says the sky is being eaten. People feel it's unfair that Armageddon is happening during their lifetimes. We see musketeers fighting spacemen, a punk rocker fighting someone who looks undead, and there's a pirate flag in the background. Uh, Everything about this panel is just stellar. I mean, I love this one single panel. Um, and I want to call attention to a little Easter egg that the artist put in. They're at the corner of Teddy Street and Haynes Boulevard, and Teddy Haynes is actually a real life promoter of comic book conventions in the New York and Toronto area.
Huh. Okay, that's something I didn't know. I mean, that's something I probably wouldn't have known. Like, I mean, you told me to kinda pick out, like, try and find some of the Easter eggs and the little cameos and things like that in here, and I did my best to find what I could, but that's one I don't think I ever would have, like, caught on to.
Yeah, I had a little cheat sheet that gave me some details about some of the people that were in this issue, because as I realized how many Easter eggs there were in here, I went digging for the ones I didn't recognize. So we go to the next page, which is just an awesome double page spread. People are fighting dinosaurs. Um, Everything on this page is just drawn really well. We see the narrator talking about a 1997 Ford Basilisk, which is a obviously fictional futuristic car since this was published in 1985 that Moore dreamed up for the story. For those who aren't familiar, those who don't play D&D like we do, a basilisk is a mythical serpent. So it seems that Moore has some kind of an affinity for the year 1997, since that's the year that his other stories, V for Vendetta and Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow, are set in. Also, we get a picture similar to the cover here, except this time instead of Hawkman, Batman, and the Stranger, we get Constantine, Ben Cox, and Frank North. Swamp Thing is not stepping on the dinosaur; he is stepping over a dead dinosaur, which to me is just I don't know, that cover is kind of a bait and switch in my opinion. Makes us think that Swamp Thing defeated the dinosaur, and no, really, he was just in the middle of stepping over it. I feel like that was probably an editorial mandate, just to sell comics, and I don't know, I feel lied to. We also get Cox there in the background doing his best Porky Pig imitation. Did you catch we got the dodo birds, of course, being run over by the 1997 Ford Basilisk.
That just happens to look like a Batmobile.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah. But did you happen to catch the cameo on this page?
Oh, is that Alan Moore in the corner with the octopus?
It definitely is.
Okay.
So moving on to the next page, we get a great close up of Constantine's face. Uh, Constantine says the real crunch is coming and starts giving out assignments. Cox is in charge of coordinating with Sister Anne Marie. North is in charge of getting ready for the finale. As a side note, the Cheryl that is mentioned here is Constantine's older sister, Cheryl Constantine Masters. Um, Constantine and Swamp Thing end up getting teleported out of here.
Yeah, I still have no connection to these characters, so I'm hoping by the end of this storyline that there's gonna be something there where I'm going to be somewhat interested. Otherwise, I'm gonna have to go out and start reading Hellblazer.
So we get a page of show and tell for what teleportation looks like. Swamp Thing tries to close his eyes and realizes he hasn't got any, which is ironic given that at the bottom of the page it is a bunch of eyes. A couple of really well drawn eyes and a couple of poorly drawn.
I gotta say, this page of all the pages I have read of Swamp Thing, this page, in fact, I'm gonna throw out comic books. This page is fing amazing because the artwork is just so psychedelic and cool, and just like the layout of everything is beautiful. The color scheme is beautiful, and the way that he describes teleportation. I mean, how many years have we been watching television shows or movies or read comic books or science fiction stories about teleportation? Most of the time, I don't ever see them describing it. It's just, oh, okay, molecules got scrambled and then boom, there you are. He's going through a psychological experience here with this teleportation. And I was like, that was really cool.
Well drawn page. I agree. It didn't strike me quite as much as it has you, but I agree. It's a good page.
It's, I mean, like, not just the, like I said, not just the art, but the writing on it, I thought was just awesome. Like everything about this page just really kind of blew me away. And I think because it was up until this point, I was like, all right, this is pretty good. All right, this is leading somewhere. And then, I mean, I instantly knew they were where they were getting teleported to because I know enough about Crisis to know what's coming. But then it was like, okay, before we even get to where we're headed, our destination, you get this cool this little like snippet of like how teleportation feels. I'm like, damn, that's actually kind of cool.
Yeah. We go on to the next page, and Swamp Thing is wandering around the Monitor space station, though we aren't told that that's where he is yet. We see that panel in the middle with the multiple Earths on a view screen. And this is the crisis happening that our little podcast here is named after. Swamp Thing asks Constantine where they are. Um, that middle right panel, the close up of Swamp Thing's face, I, killer detail. Like I love that close up of his face. It is so good. Um, and given how kind of poorly the rest of the panels around it are drawn, that one panel just really stands out to me.
It's a really good panel. Like I've got a thought, but I think I'm gonna have to wait until we get to the next page to express my thought because I'm gonna have to see if you caught on to this too.
Okay. Um, I I want to say that once again, Bissett feels rushed, and I'd like Woach back. I'd like to see him illustrating this instead. Um, Sorry, Mr. Bissett, if you happen to watch this episode.
I I don't I don't have a problem with Bissett's artwork on this one actually. I mean, like I feel like I mean he's been rushed in the past, and I can also kind of sometimes wonder if maybe he was kind of like I don't know how long he'd been doing comics before he got to Swamp Thing. Because I know like his later work is phenomenal. Uh, so I just felt like this one wasn't as bad to me. Like I felt like he's starting to kind of find his niche a little bit.
And then, so we see that Constantine says they are on the Monitor satellite, but the Monitor is dead, which means at this point that the crisis is well underway. Just for those who don't know, the Monitor was a powerful pan-dimensional being who secretly observed and studied events in the DC comic universe for several months prior to the Crisis on Infinite Earth series. He briefly appeared with his assistant Lila, aka Harbinger, in almost every DC title during that time. The Monitor and Lila appeared 5 months before this issue in Swamp Thing number 30 on page 12. In the Crisis Maxi series, it was finally explained that he planned to save all the parallel universes by combining them into one universe. The universes were threatened by the evil Anti Monitor. And then Swamp Thing says if the world is ending, he wants to be with his wife, which I thought was very sweet. Um,
Yeah, I mean, if you're married and have a girlfriend and like they're that important to you, like, yeah, I could see that. I mean, there's probably a few other things I'd rather be doing, but then I'm single and I don't give a crap.
Constantine says it's not just the world that's ending, it's the multiverse. Swamp Thing is confused, and Constantine tries to explain how the multiverse works. Constantine also mentions that all the Earths are being consolidated into one, which was how DC decided to resolve the continuity crisis that they were facing in the 80s. Swamp Thing questions why they are there if the world is already going to be saved, and Constantine says that the material world will be saved, but there is more to life than the material world. Constantine wants to mingle with everybody else on the satellite.
Now, the 2 points I wanna bring up are, one, artistically. So, uh, the last page and this page, did you see how they kinda mirror each other?
Yeah, I did not notice that, but I see what you're talking about. Flipping
Yeah,
back and
it's
forth
like
between the two.
both have 6 panels per page, each one the centerpiece being that circular panel, one with Swamp Thing, one with Constantine. It's I thought that was kinda cool, like, planning. I don't know, uh, again, I'm assuming this is a thing that Bissette does, that he decides how he wants to lay everything out, because from what I've seen of Alan Moore scripts, you don't get any of that in there. It's just basically a novel, and then, you've gotta pray to God that you can figure out how the hell to decipher all that. Uh, but I thought the other thing that was kinda cool was, a lot of times with these tie-ins, they don't really matter much in, like, the whole, of the, whatever the Maxi series or the event is. It's just kind of like, "Oh, by
Oh,
the
look,
way,
the
so and
sky's
so is
red.
here." Yeah, stuff like that. I thought it was really clever of him to be able to take the Crisis event and then even expand it and say, like, "Okay, yeah, that's happening over here, and the heroes are fixing all that. But we're about to have our own little mini crisis on this side too that we got to figure out." I
Yes,
thought
and in
that was
fact,
that's clever.
as we get further into this, more towards the end, I actually have a lot to say about that.
Yeah, I'm very curious because, like, I thought that was, and I, like I said, I haven't read this before, so I did not know this is how Swamp Thing tied into Crisis, and that's really cool.
Well, moving on to the next page, we do see. Um, so moving on to the next page, we see um, everybody mingling with everybody else on the satellite, which is kind of cool because if you read Crisis on Infinite Earths, you can actually see this this moment in time happening from more Alexander Luther's perspective. That's the redhead there. You see him looking down on everybody, and you see Swamp Thing and Constantine standing in the background as teeny tiny little characters. So it's like an opposite view of this, which is pretty cool. So Crisis on Infinite Earths was to be the final appearance of many DC characters, as well as a once in a lifetime opportunity to see all of them interact in one big story, thus indulging the fantasies of comics creators and readers alike. As I mentioned a moment ago, this scene also takes place in Crisis on Infinite Earths number 5, page 7. Swamp Thing appears in that on that page. In the upper half of this panel, we see the elongated man. That's the guy in red right there. That's stretching his head down from his body. We see Alex Luthor. That's the redhead standing on the platform. Let's see. That was a character that was created specifically for Crisis. The soldier with feathers on his helmet is Little Sure Shot, who served with Sergeant Rock, who is going to meet Swamp Thing in a future issue of Swamp Thing. Let's see. Next to him is Batman, and of course, on the other side of Constantine, we see Doctor Fate in the gold helmet, who will appear again in issue number 50 of Swamp Thing. And above him, far in the distance, in the cowboy hat, is Jonah Hex, who will also star in a future issue of Swamp Thing. To the right of Fate are Superman and Aquaman. In the right corner is Ragdoll, an enemy of the Golden Age Flash. This Alex Luthor is actually the son of Lex Luthor from a parallel universe. And unlike the Lex Luthor of the normal DC universe, Superman's nemesis, Alex's father was a good guy. Alex Luthor is really unimportant to this run of Swamp Thing. this issue aside. Um, but Alex does play a very important role in Crisis on Infinite Earths, as well as the much later Infinite Crisis series. So this is really tying up a bunch of DC continuity on a single page. Um, Swamp Thing mentions the name Luther, brings him a tingle, a premonition, which is a way of Alan Moore telling us he has plans for Swamp Thing and Luther in the future. In that middle panel, to Swamp Thing's left is the villain Eclipso. To his right is the hero Ragman. And then in the bottom left panel, we see Mist, who is a Golden Age villain. I had to look up who that was. I'd never heard of Mist before. But the feral child that Swamp Thing mentions is Commandy, a creation of Jack Kirby. Commandy is actually, I really like his comic book a lot. It's a post apocalyptic future that was retroactively removed from DC Comics continuity after the crisis, which is kind of sad. But you know what? Shout out to Jack Kirby for Commandy. Um, but Swamp Thing wonders if these are the people who will inherit the Earth. Like, yeah, we're saving the world for these guys, really?
I mean, I know pretty much everyone you've mentioned so far. I'm very familiar with, except for like maybe the character that was with Sergeant Rock. I don't know him very well. I've never read Sergeant Rock to be fair, but everyone else I'm very familiar with. So
Oh, that's cool. And then we get a bunch more cameos in the next panel. We've got the hero Ambush Bug at the top, kind of sticking his head down from the top there. He is upside down. Um, we see the Negative Man, Larry Trainer from the Doom Patrol, which that was really cool to see because I've actually been reading the 1961, 62 in their Doom Patrol recently. Getting, getting a little bit of Silver Age love. And it's like, oh, hey, cool. I was just reading a comic book with him in it, the night before. Um, and his shadow is there because basically the Negative Man comes out of him and his body collapses. So this must be moments before his collapse. Um, let's see. We see Hawkman, and then future Swamp Thing is going to meet others from Hawkman's planet, as well as befriending the man with the fin on his head, who is Adam Strange. The fellow in the green pilot's cap is Hans von Hammer, the enemy ace, who appeared in Star Spangled War stories. He is the deadliest German fighter pilot of World War One, who will apparently meet Swamp Thing later on too. So this is all foreshadowing. Um, to his right, we see Blackhawk, Jason, who is Janos Prashka, a World War II hero of the Allied forces. And bottom right with the purple mask, I don't know who that is. Do you?
I believe it might be. I don't know. Like my timeline could be incorrect. It almost looks like it's Manhunter, but I think they didn't do Manhunter until like later 80s. I
Yeah,
don't
I'm
remember if
only
Manhunter.
familiar with 80s Manhunter, and that does not look like 80s Manhunter to me.
Yeah, so that's why I'm kind of like, because that's almost what it reminds me of a little bit. But I know that was like a Walt Simonson thing, and I don't even think Walt Simonson was working for DC at this point in time. So I think at this point in time in comic book history, Simonson was on Thor probably. Uh, so yeah, I'm not sure. I don't recognize anyone with a purple mask in
I wonder if we went back and looked at the panel in Crisis on Infinite Earths, which I'm not going to do right now, but if we looked at this scene in Crisis on Infinite Earths viewed from another angle, if we might be able to get another angle of that person and figure out who it is. You know what? If you happen to be watching this and you do that, and let us know down in the comments who the person in the purple mask is in that middle panel right there.
yeah, because I'm very curious because most of everyone you named I knew who they were, and then after you did name them, I was like, okay, maybe I didn't like. Like I didn't pick him out who that guy was, but I know of the character. This is the only one that I'm kind of like I have no idea.
I don't recognize the Mist. I don't recognize the World War I German pilot. What was his name?
Enemy
Hans
Ace.
von Hammer, the enemy
Yeah,
ace. I didn't recognize him.
I do know Enemy Ace. In fact, I have a couple of Enemy Ace comics because I
Nice.
have a stack of just random war comics somewhere. And the Mist, I mean, you will become very familiar with the Mist because he is a main focal point in James Robinson's Starman, and that's kind of where I learned about him.
I'm looking
Really
forward
big,
to that.
yeah. Robinson does a good job with the Mist.
Well, then in that last panel, we see Phantom Stranger, who usually signifies supernatural danger is coming. Last panel, I love how Swamp Thing says he's like pushing through the crowd, seeking someone he knows, and finding only strangers. And there's the stranger. And I believe they've met before.
Yes, they were in when Swamp Thing had to go get Abby's soul
Yeah,
back.
that's what it was.
He
Yep.
was in there. Yeah.
So
Uh,
I love how well played this part is, and I'm assuming that's Alan Moore's writing that conjured up this series of panels that ends with us finding only strangers. I don't know, that tickled me a lot.
no, they always do that. Whenever Phantom Stranger appears, there's always some kind of way that they introduce him with "Here comes a stranger," "Behold a stranger," "Don't take candy from a stranger." Things like that always tend to kind of pop up.
um,
Uh,
sorry, go ahead.
did you get all the cameos or did you miss one?
Did I miss one? You let me know. Who did
You
I
did miss
miss?
one in the last panel. Do you know who else is in that panel with the Phantom Stranger?
I recognize the costume and the hair, but I don't know it off the top of my head.
That's the Creeper.
He was also in Crisis, but I can't remember a lot about them.
Creeper is like, I mean, you're at least you personally will mainly know the Creeper from Batman the Animated Series. That episode he guest starred in. That's where most people probably will know him from, unless you're a diehard comic fan, because he came from the Charlatan uh, collection of heroes, where Blue Beetle, Captain Atom, all of them came from, created by Steve Ditko. Um, and he's just a bizarre character, but he's always fascinated me. But yet, no one in the world seems to know what the hell to do with this guy. But he's such an interesting character.
So, in the same month this issue was published, New Teen Titans Volume 2, number 18, showed Steve Dayton, aka Mento, babbling prophetically about the mess Constantine will drag him into in the Swamp Thing number 50. So that's a little preview for what's coming. Cyborg says, John Constantine? I heard about him during the crisis. Sorry. I heard about him during the crisis. Into the occult, I think. What's his connection to Dayton? On this page, we see Swamp Thing and the Stranger talking. They know each other and have interacted before. The Stranger mentions that he and Swamp Thing's roles will come up later when the clamor of worlds dying has abated. This is, again, foreshadowing for issue 50 of Swamp Thing. Swamp Thing doesn't know what his role will be. He wants to know why he had to travel across America to witness the horrors and how it relates to this. The Stranger says Swamp Thing has to shore up his spirit. Constantine agrees. Oh, snap. Um, Stranger actually mentions the Newcastle exorcism on this page. He says he thought Constantine was dead after Newcastle. And Newcastle plays a huge role in the Delano Constantine story. I mean, it is constantly referred to. And when they made the Constantine TV series that was a part of the CW uh Flash universe, no, Arrowverse. They call it the Arrowverse. When they made that Constantine that was part of the Arrowverse, they pulled a lot of stuff from Delano's run, including Newcastle. They refer to it in the CW show over and over again. Um, So the first time I was reading this comic, I had not read the Constantine comic yet at that point, so I missed this the first time around. And I don't know if this was Alan Moore setting up Delano or if Delano just took the pieces and ran with it. Either way, this is freaking brilliant.
Going off of track record, I'm going to say it was just a throwaway thing that Moore put in there, and then Delano ran with it because that really happens so often with Alan Moore. I mean, like we brought it up before of Blackest Night, that whole thing was just a throwaway story, and then it turned into now because of that we've got Blackest Night, Atrocitus, all this crap that came out of just I think it was literally like one or two panels in that storyline, that like one little like mini story in the Green Lantern Quarterly, excuse me. So I could see that he just wanted to touch a little bit on the mysterious past of Constantine, kind of do that Wolverine thing of it's like, oh, we'll probably never know about it. I'm just putting it here. And then Delano was like, I'm going to take this and run with it.
Well, if that's what happened, Delano did a freaking amazing job. I'm gonna give a little bit of spoilers for Constantine, for Constantine's own book. Do you want to take out your earphones, your headphones before I do that so you don't hear the spoilers?
No, I'm sorry. I don't mind spoilers. A lot of times they make me want to read the books more. So
Okay, so just real quick, Newcastle was a city where Constantine tried, with disastrous results, to perform an exorcism with Benjamin Cox, Frank North, Judith, and Anne Marie. Anne Marie being the nun that's over in England currently. This is how Anne Marie's face and body were scarred. We're going to see that a little bit later towards the end. And if you notice, Ben did a pretty good Porky Pig imitation earlier with his speech impediment. That's also where Ben developed his speech impediment. He didn't have a speech impediment before Newcastle. Um, all of this, if you'd like to know more, is in Hellblazer number 11. Um, and funny, uh, not coincidence, I'm sure, but funny, bit of trivia. Newcastle is also the home city of real life singer Sting.
that makes sense. In fact, I can see that's why he did it. He threw it in there, like he said, the Newcastle event as another little connection to. Yeah, basically, we put Sting in a comic book, and here's another little nod to him.
Yeah. And then in this panel, we also get some more cameo appearances. We already mentioned Cyborg. Um, there's also Ambush Bug is hanging out next to Cyborg in the background, although Ambush Bug is not colored. And it's hard to see. And oh, and yeah, we mentioned Elongated Man being back there as well. But just to the right of Constantine is Sargon, who is going to be a big part of Swamp Thing number 49 and 50. Although you can't barely tell he's there, just a few lines, but you can see the turban on his head.
Huh? Okay, I did not notice that.
Like the little part at the end where Constantine's like, "See you later," and Stranger's like, "Oh yeah, you will. You can depend on it." I did want to comment that, in my opinion, the art on this page is really rough. Um, there's just not a lot of detail. I mean, you can tell who the characters are supposed to be, but we didn't even bother to color in Ambush Bug or Sargon in the background. And that's not necessarily a penciler's fault. That's the colorist being lazy or being rushed. I don't know. Um, the one thing I do like though is that Constantine is pulling on one of Swamp Thing's vines. Like, come on, dude, let's go.
I do like that. I think that is kind of cool. I was about to come to the defense of the colorist and be like, all right, dude, I mean, you're not an artist, so you don't understand that, coloring things that are that far away could be very difficult. And then I realized, like, okay, Bug is literally right next to Cyborg, the same exact size. And you got, I mean, Cyborg's got coloring to him. Ambush Bug should too. A Sargon, okay, maybe he's behind glass. Who knows? He's kind of out of the way. But Ambush Bug definitely should have got some coloring on that one. So that, Yeah, I can't defend the colorist on that particular part.
All right. On the next page, Swamp Thing is again getting on Constantine for not giving him answers. Swamp Thing has a little chat with Alex Luthor. We are told that Luthor is less than a year old and big for his age. That actually made me chuckle a little bit. Luthor says Swamp Thing will be dealing with the spiritual dimensions. Swamp Thing was unaware of this. Constantine says that the physical destruction will cause temporary disturbances in the psychic plane. People anticipated this and planned to take advantage of it. Luther brings up a South American cult, which is another bit of foreshadowing. Um, and Swamp Thing thinks this is all BS, and Constantine tells him to go back to Earth and see for himself.
I don't have much to add to this one except for the fact that I like the top right panel. I think that is beautiful with the reflection of Swamp Thing and Constantine in.
I agree with you. That is a really cool panel with the reflection, and I did miss that the first time around. And I think when I was reading it, I just like glossed over it and put it down as crappy art. But given the context now, you're absolutely right. So we get some cool but not detailed enough for my taste psychedelic artwork here. It's not bad art, mind you. Certainly nowhere close to what we've seen here. But I've also seen the psychedelic artwork in Martian Manhunter, and this doesn't hold a candle to that. Um, the narrator tells us that Swamp Thing saw uncountable horrors. We see beastmen about to attack a woman who is wearing fur. The woman's little dog is trying to protect her. In another example of Alan Moore hating dogs. The implication being that this little dog is about to get carved up, just like its owner. We're given no explanation for who these beastmen are.
Uh, I don't get where you're saying. I mean, like, why are they going to carve up the little dog? They're mad at the woman for wearing fur.
Because
Why
the
would they
dog
kill a
is
living
trying
animal?
to protect her despite the fact that she is wearing fur.
Doesn't mean they have to kill the dog. They can still kill the woman and then leave the dog alone. We
I
don't we
don't
don't know that for sure.
I've seen enough of Alan Moore's writing to understand that he hates dogs, and I'm gonna flip the page and point out that right at the top of the next page we see dogs being trapped. See, I told you Alan Moore hates dogs. There's a dog that is either dead or in a great deal of pain with its hind leg in a trap.
I don't know, maybe he's just lying down. He's taking a nap.
Its leg is clearly in a trap.
That could be a tail.
No, the tail is in between the two legs.
It could be maybe a furry snake. I don't know. Like his artwork isn't that detailed right there. We don't know for a fact. You have no proof
You're looking at
Until Alan Moore tells you that he doesn't like dogs. You have no proof. You were just throwing
I
out a
have
biased
seen the
opinion.
context. Alan Moore
I,
hates
it,
dogs.
you would make a terrible lawyer.
We get a Bonnie and Clyde reference for anybody who's not aware. Clyde Barrow and Bonnie Parker were a notorious pair of criminals based in Texas during the Great Depression. They were popularly known as Bonnie and Clyde and the subject of a successful 1967 film of the same name, starring Warren Beatty and Faye Dunaway. At the bottom of that page, Swamp Thing experiences what goes through people's mind during extinction. This page with the red and black, I complain about the lack of detail, but in this instance, I love, love, love everything this page is doing. Oh my gosh, this is the screaming people, the eyes, just the emotion that this conveys is probably my favorite panel in the book.
I mean, one of my favorite panels was I liked the Beastmen just because it kind of popped in my head of like I want to see more with the Beastmen. Like I would just love to see a comic book written about Beastmen gang members roaming the streets of New York City. But that's just me.
It's called
Um,
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
okay, there is that. Um, But, no, this panel is gorgeous, and I love this panel because it reminds me of, like, a '70s horror, poster. Like, this is something you would have seen, like, in fact, it almost reminds me a little bit now that it pops in my head of, the poster for Dawn of the Dead.
I bet you that Bissett was inspired by that poster. We know he's a horror fan. Moving on to the next page, we are given examples of more horror throughout the world. So the second panel says a jackboxer from the Manhattan salt boss of Soto had managed to bring down a young ichthyosaurus with his warpoon, but the alligators were closing in fast. I looked this up to see to try and get an idea of what a jackboxer is. As far as I can tell, it's something Alan Moore just made up. But I'm curious, have you ever heard of a jackboxer before?
Never. I figured this was literally just something Alan Moore made up because he tends to and he's really good because it sounds like a real thing. The way that he writes it, it sounds like I mean, hell, he confused you enough to make you go look it up. So
That's true. And I like how it kind of gets across the point that time is all mixed up. Because this guy is clearly not from the past, and he's killing a dinosaur from the past. Alligators are also from the past, so they could be anywhere in time. But, this guy interacting with the dinosaur tells us that time is just all screwed up. Um, and then we see he says he saw a woman with a pulpy orange growth upon her shoulder stumble unwittingly into a field of water hyacinths. And I looked up hyacinth, and that is actually real. It is a fragrant, spring blooming, bulbous plant known for its dense clusters of star shaped flowers in vibrant colors like blue, pink, purple, and white. It is prized as an ornamental flower for its strong, sweet scent, though its bulbs are toxic and should not be eaten. Um, so it says they parted, and she sank into the water beneath the growth, opened its mouth, and began to bellow. Is that talking about the pulpy orange growth?
that's how I took it. It was the pulpy orange growth bellowed, and I don't know what that was. I like the way that he drew it until I read it. I almost thought we were getting another cameo because I thought that might have been like the Black Orchid because I know Black Orchid was, although this was before Vertigo really starts to take off, but Black Orchid becomes a Vertigo book at a certain point, and she was a character, I believe, like a '70s character uh, that had shown up in DC. So I thought that was a throwaway character, like cameo there. But once they did the orange thing, I have no idea what the hell is going on here. It's interesting though.
Alan Moore weirdness. We'll chalk
Yeah,
it up to that. So then we see giant hailstones fell for 15 minutes, glittering in the bright sunshine. A withered cypress tree combusted spontaneously, and as tiny apes with opposable thumbs ran shrieking from the blazing undergrowth, Swamp Thing decided he had seen enough. The opposable thumbs of the monkey would suggest that they are the missing link in the theorized evolutionary chain between humans and apes. Alan Moore just dropping that in there, like, not explaining it, not talking about, just Swamp Thing sees the missing link. And then at the bottom of the page, Swamp Thing nopes out of there and decides to go somewhere to think.
and not just go somewhere to think. He burns up as he goes somewhere to think.
Yeah.
I thought that was kind of cool. So going back to the last page, just real quick, because with all of your constant complaining that you do, I want to throw out one of my own complaints. How was Clyde Barrow able to figure out how a VCR worked?
That's a good question. I don't know. Obviously, he's found the Bonnie and Clyde tape. He's taken it out. He's put it in, and he's watched it. Um, I think that's one of those things where you just kind of have to suspend a disbelief.
Yeah, and I normally can suspend disbelief. So maybe it's just your negativity of how much you hate so many things that happen in this comic, not this particular comic, but in Swamp Thing of artistically and stuff. Maybe your negativity is rubbing off on me a little bit. Oh, I'm sorry. Am I boring you?
Yes. Swamp Thing has gone off to think, and Constantine pops up in Swamp Thing's thinking place. Constantine says the satellite was destroyed. Swamp Thing says Constantine was right, and something needs to be done. And then Constantine says that then it's not this level that the Brujeria are interested in. Just as a side note, Brujeria means witchcraft in Spanish. Swamp Thing wants to know who the Brujeria are. This is definitely more shadowing. This is definitely more foreshadowing. I believe that this is going to end up being the cult that was mentioned earlier. All right, so on the next page, we see, um, in my opinion, just one of the coolest parts of the book. Constantine says that the Briheria are a secret society of male witches that have existed for centuries in Patagonia on the southern tip of South America. They are the Council of the Cave. They have to go through a ritual that washes away any Christian baptism. But my question is, what happens if they were never baptized? Did they still have to stand under the waterfall for 40 days and 40? So then next they have to catch a skull that their instructor throws at them. That part seems simple enough. Uh, but then you have to kill your best friend. Sorry, Cookie. If they come for me, I'm coming for you. Nothing personal.
I'm I, I'm torn. I mean, I'm a little insulted that you would kill me, but I'm also a little touched that you consider me your best friend.
Yeah, I mean, only if the Brahia come for me.
I think we might need to find new friends.
um, I'm just gonna be upfront. I really don't like how Constantine and Swamp Thing are drawn on this page, either at the top or the bottom. But the rest of the drawing on this page is freaking phenomenal.
It's really got a cool horror vibe to it. The skulls, the guy bathing in the water. Like for a brief second, like if I wasn't paying attention, and the first time I flipped through it, I wasn't paying attention. Um, it almost looked like a vision of the Spectre. For a second, I was like, "What the hell is the Spectre doing on here?"
Oh yeah, I
Because
see
like
that.
just all all cloaked in white and everything. Um, just like everything is cool. I don't have a problem with the way Constantine is at the top of the page because it feels again horror vibes. So he's cloaked in darkness kind of thing, heavy shadowing around the eyes, like whatever. The bottom part, I see what you're talking about because he's kind of got a weird look on his face, and I'm assuming it's because he's being kind of bleakly sarcastic when he's talking about the not the worst thing or the next to worst thing. Like that expression on his face is supposed to be like, well, you hang out with me enough so you know what it's like when you're being kind of darkly sarcastic.
Yeah. This it's a lack of detail, and you're right that that expression is confusing. Go to the next page, and we are told about their waistcoats that they make by flaying the skin from the breast of a recently buried Christian corpse. We're told that the waistcoat glow in the dark because human skin has some phosphorescentness to it. I didn't look it up, but I am super curious if that's real. I don't think it is, but
And it's hold on a second, and it's not the human skin, it's the human fat that is ghostly phosphorescent. Yeah, I wanted to point that out because I love the description of this. As a horror fan, this is incredibly grotesque, gruesome, and disturbing, and I loved every moment of it. And so the fact that he did the whole human fat, I mean, I was tempted as well to kind of look it up, but I don't know if that's something I want on my Google search history.
And then one of my favorite parts, we get a callback to the Invanchi creature that Emma, Constantine's girlfriend, jumped out of a window to avoid way back in issue 37. We did an episode on that. If you want to backtrack and check it out, you can see what we're talking about. Um, I love that callback right there.
Not just the callback, we're getting like as we get deeper into this page, we're getting essentially what sounds like the bloody origin for this thing.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I mean it's a callback, and also telling us that that Invenchi back in issue 37 was foreshadowing for something what about 10 issues later.
Yeah, which is really, really good writing. Not just for the foreshadowing of like, something that's coming in the future that, all that stuff, but again, the grotesqueness and gruesomeness of the origin of this creature is like beyond disturbing.
Mm.
I mean, I can handle a lot of disturbing stuff, but I even shuddered a little bit at this part. I was like, "Oh,
Yeah,
damn."
because Constantine goes over the gruesome details about how an Invenchi is made.
Yeah, I don't even know if like should are we able to say that on here? I kind of feel like that might be a little.
I'm not going to get flagged by YouTube, but the page has been up on the screen almost the whole time we've been talking about it. So if people want to read what it says, it's right there for you.
Yeah, definitely read it. I don't even want to describe it because it's pretty messed up. that's that's coming from a guy who once watched a Serbian film, and if you're a horror fan and know what a Serbian film is, I can handle some creepy stuff.
From the context, I have a pretty good idea. Cookie, you've been waiting for it. You've been annoyed by it. Are you
Yes,
excited that your payoff leading up to issue 50 is finally here?
I'm getting excited. I'm also excited for another reason. Do you see what is in the bottom right hand of this panel?
Bloody American flag, that's a left hand that goes to the right.
I'm sorry, left hand. But yes, finally, he's tying things together. That cover was not just a useless piece of crap.
Constantine reiterates that the Brujeria saw the crisis coming and have been slowly getting everyone in the right thing of mind for it. We're giving callbacks to the stories that Swamp Thing witnessed all around the country thanks to Constantine. Constantine says belief is power, a notion that is pervasive through a lot of Vertigo era writers. The Brujeria intended to accomplish something monstrous by messing with everyone's beliefs. Um, Great art, in my opinion, on most of this page, except where Swamp Thing is in front of the American flag. And then, of course, we get our standard Alan Moore eyes on the bottom right with that bloody
I
American flag.
I will give that a pass with the bloody American flag and him not looking super detailed or anything like that because he looks very patriotic right there. Like Swamp Thing is an all American monster, so I'm gonna let it slide. I
And
see a cameo.
it's a good
I see a
metaphor about Swamp Thing like running across America.
It actually is. I think they did a good job with that. Did you catch? I mean, like obviously we know, like I said, cameos because of the previous monsters and stuff like that. But do you see the cameo that I see? And
Oh,
in
the dad is there.
yep, yep,
I didn't
the
catch
zombie
that the
dad.
first time around, but yeah, yeah, there he is.
That that is awesome. I
It
love that he
really is.
came back.
Um, and then moving on to the next page, we are once again reminded of what Constantine's friends think is coming. This is another great throwback to issue 37. But we kind of come out the bottom line. Nobody is really sure what it is. We get the big reveal that the Briheria are going to destroy heaven. And I have to be honest, with everything that's been building up, that seems a little underwhelming to me. But then again, we've actually seen heaven in Swamp Thing and how nice it can be there. So I guess if they plan on wiping out all the souls in heaven, including Alex Halland's soul, the man who was Swamp Thing before Swamp Thing became Swamp Thing, um, that's probably a pretty big deal. I don't know. I just that part felt like a little bit of a letdown.
I'm not gonna lie, I kind of agree with you a little bit. It's I'm torn because it's like it shouldn't feel like a letdown because going to destroy heaven, whether you're religious or not, story wise, that feels like a pretty epic thing. I mean, okay, you're gonna destroy heaven. Okay, well, what that's we're all supposed to go to heaven when we die. Where do we go if heaven's destroyed? It feels like it's yeah. So it's like but I think it does. But I mean, I can kind of see where you're coming from. It's like the way that they kind of brought it up. It just kind of seems like yeah, they're gonna destroy heaven. Okay, and
Yeah. It could have been better. Um,
yeah,
but that's okay. We're still going to get a lot of cool stuff from it. When we go on to the next page, Constantine tells Swamp Thing that they're headed for South America, but they have a stop along the way. Um, so that Constantine can get Swamp Thing some real knowledge, not just answers. Constantine always keeps his word, he says. I somehow doubt him. Anyway, um, but yes, we're at the Parliament of Trees. Constantine is going to take Swamp Thing to the Parliament of Trees. This is set up for years, decades of storytelling in the DC universe. The Parliament of Trees is something that they exist and bring up in continuity even to this day, especially with Poison Ivy. It's so exciting to see to know that we're on our way to that introduction.
I'm excited because I've been reading Poison Ivy. I'm way behind, but I've been trying to read Poison Ivy, and I feel like there are some similarities between the current Poison Ivy run and Swamp Thing a little bit. Like I almost feel like with the return of Vertigo, they kind of missed the mark by they should have shifted Poison Ivy over to Vertigo because it felt like oh would have felt like the like the Swamp Thing going to Vertigo thing. So yeah, like I'm excited to kind of see this Parliament of Trees. I'm kind of all right. What is this?
So DC, I'm just going to digress for just a moment because even though Vertigo is coming back, it has nothing to do with Swamp Thing or established characters. DC put out a press release today and had several of their creators and editors go on Reddit today and talk about how DC is now Vertigo for creator owned titles and Black Label for uh, characters that DC owns, but are separate from the continuity of the regular DC universe. So they feel it's very important that all of us understand this distinction for some reason, which honestly I think is kind of dumb because I think DC Black Label should have the option of being in continuity and treating it like a more mature issue. You can have things that are in DC continuity that are mature, that have excessive violence, that have nudity, that have excessive bad language. I'm okay with all of those things being in continuity and falling under the Black Label imprint, but now they've explicitly said everything Black Label is not in continuity. I they painted themselves into a corner, and I am a disappointment.
I concur. I agree because it feels like Black Label should be what Vertigo was when it first started. Where it felt like Vertigo when Vertigo first started, there was still that blurry line of okay, this stuff is still in continuity with the main DC universe, but it is just more mature books.
Yeah. Anyway, it's not important for this, but just something that came up that I wanted to express my feelings on because it's been a topic that's come up several times today. Thank you, Reddit.
Yeah.
Constantine tells Swamp Thing to say a proper goodbye to Abby before they take off, since they might be gone for a while or maybe forever. Another little bit of foreshadowing here for those of you in the know. Um, the faraway art, the zoomed out art on this page is terrible. The close in art is great. When they zoom in on Constantine's face and Swamp Thing at the top, and then they do it again, Swamp Thing's, half his face at the bottom. Amazing. Those zoomed out views, terrible. I I, I want to see more consistency in the book. They can obviously make really detailed drawings and they can do a really good job of it, but they don't. Maybe editorial's fault for rushing them. I don't know. I'm just I don't like the lack of consistency.
I I don't know. It doesn't bother me that much because I mean the zoomed out shots, you're not supposed to have a lot of detail. I think the detail usually comes into the surrounding area more so than the figures.
I guess. I don't know. I why not both? Would be my
Uh, it's as an artist, like it can be difficult to do detail in like far out shots.
and that
It's
top left panel. It's a blob of black and blue with an outline of Swamp Thing in green. It's yeah. I don't know. Um, I'm not going to make a big deal out of it. I've said my piece. So next we go over to London, where Sister Anne Marie is. We see an Alan Moore lookalike in the background wearing a V for Vendetta shirt. And I wondered, was V for Vendetta out in 1985 or was this foreshadowed? So Sister Anne Marie is searching for Judith. Judith was one of the people with Constantine in Newcastle, and we saw her briefly in Swamp Thing issue 37. The sister is lost and being followed. She decides to take the subway in order to make sure she does not get even further lost. It will take her on a direct route back to her hotel. And did you catch it in the bottom right?
the bottom right panel.
Yeah.
All I see is, I mean, I see her in the subway, and there's a figure following her. That's all I see.
Yes, but do you see the figure's right arm?
Oh, okay,
That's the
okay,
Invenchi.
yeah. Now I didn't, I did not catch that either. See, I don't know why, but I think for some reason at this point I was more obsessed with the subway tunnel because with the introduct, like the way that they deal with magic and all this stuff going on, my nerd confused brain got their hopes up. There's like, oh, are we going to the Rock of Eternity? And then I suddenly realized after I said it, I was like, oh no, Alan Moore's not going to make me that happy.
Hmm. Well, next the sister gets on the train and opens her Bible, and she opens it to Revelations, and then the comic quotes from Revelations again. She departs the train, afraid of whatever is chasing her. She knows this particular platform is closed today. Something laughs at her from the darkness and starts towards her. Creepy, yo.
I mean, he does a good job at building up the tension. I'm like, oh, okay, something, yeah, something's coming. And I, like I said, I did not catch on to what was coming, like you didn't either, until like the last reveal. They're like, oh crap.
So then on the next page, the thing she thinks it's walking backwards, but wait, no, it's walking forwards. But the head is on backwards. What is going on here? She runs, has to run upstairs. They're difficult to navigate. She reaches the top, and when she reaches out for her, The last thing we see is a bloody cross and a quote from a book called In Patagonia. Um, no one can recall the memory of a time when the Central Committee did not exist. Some have suggested that the sect was in embryo even before the emergence of man. Perhaps the term Central Committee is a synonym for beast, quoted Bruce Chatwin from a book called In Patagonia. So, in researching this issue, I discovered In Patagonia is a real book by Bruce Chatwin, detailing his fascinating experiences during his travels through Argentina and Chile in search of a giant sloth. Um, I don't know if this quote actually appears in the book, but the book itself is real. And I also want to talk about, well, I'm sorry, I'll give you a chance to respond to that.
That to me, that's interesting. I love that he does, and I like when authors do that. Anyways, they take quotes from like song lyrics or books of poetry or other books and kind of throw them into stuff. I've always been a fan of that.
The plot element of Crisis was most likely forced into the story by DC's editorial. And it is really to Alan Moore's credit how smoothly he blends it in with this long and otherwise unrelated American Gothic Swamp Thing storyline. Most DC books had their characters and settings drastically changed or eliminated to create a more unified and consistent, accessible universe of characters through the Crisis. Which, the necessity and effectiveness of this overhaul is still the subject of debate by many comic book fans. Many favorite characters were erased from continuity, such as the original Supergirl or limited Superman no longer grew old through World War II. Um, the wide open creative canvas was limited by the removal of parallel and alternate universes. And while these changes did bring in new readers and, in fact, served as really a jumping off point for the DC universe, which I personally decided my personal comic books collection is going to focus on everything post crisis. So I'm personally affected by the crisis in a positive way. It gives me a starting point that's a really good starting point. Um, but Moore's writing um, would suggest that a less disruptive solution could have worked because he just the way he interwove everything in here.
It shows the talent of a writer if you're able to work around editorial and still make things work, which is I always felt was the power of Alan Moore. Was you you read Alan Moore outside of DC, and sometimes the man gets so off the wall and bizarre that it's just like, I don't know what drug you're smoking, but dude, puff and pass
All
to the
of them.
right already.
He is
Yeah,
taking all of the drugs.
but it's like he sometimes his stuff could be so just like I can't read it all. Outside of his mainstream work, sometimes I cannot read everything he does because it gets too weird at times. But his DC work is really, really well done because editorial had to, kind of tighten everything up and everything, and he had to work around that. He did it beautifully. Like he made these stories really, really complex and interesting, and put a lot of thought into where stuff was going. Was able to draw. We've complained here and there. Um, it's everything I've read. I've actually thought was really well done. I mean, some better than others, but he's just he's a master of his craft.
He really is.
That being, yeah, that
I
being said, not every writer's been able to pull that off. And yeah, I do see that. Like, I have not read all of the Crisis tie-ins, but I knew
oh look, the
beforehand that it
sky's
was like,
red. Anyway,
yeah, I was like, I knew you weren't going to be getting this level of tie-in and this level of writing and everything.
yeah, and I think yeah, there's a part of, yeah, that's partly right. You can't. You can't. Not all writers are going to be that good. Um, but maybe they should have put Alan Moore in charge, given him more space to do his thing. And related to that, here's a quote that I found that is, unfortunately, I found the quote, but it's not credited who said it. But here's what the quote says. In Moore's later work on the Supreme and Tom Strong series, he demonstrated the possibility of updating comics characters with modern sensibilities while acknowledging and respecting their creative history. Rather than declaring that the older, more absurd stories never took place, Moore used their old charm while simultaneously making the current stories relevant to present day society. In a two-part final Superman pre-crisis story, Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow, Moore advised continuity-obsessed fans to keep a sense of humor about how real their comics were, writing, quote, "This is an imaginary story, aren't they all?" End quote. Fortunately, unlike the more famous superhero books, no elements of Swamp Thing required changing during the crisis, so the book came through essentially unscathed.
Uh, that's that's accurate. That's 100% accurate. I've read uh, Supreme, and it was like, I mean, I'm going to go back and reread it again at some point because I really love that book. And he did exactly what they said of like he made it fun to go back and read the little like I don't know what you would call them, but like we'll call them flashbacks to golden age style stuff. The artwork, everything felt like a golden age story, and it was campy and it was cheesy, but it was a lot of fun. And then the more present day story, while still being kind of fun, also kind of like dealt with a bit more realism, and it was really just a well done book. I consider it, in my opinion, probably my favorite Alan Moore thing that I've ever read was Supreme. That's like the high point for me.
I may have to check that out. So the art on this book continues to be thoroughly inconsistent throughout. In some places, it is really good, and in other places, it is really bad. And I have to assume it's just DC editorial making the artists rush to get the book out on time, which is sad all around because we are already getting fill-in artists about every other issue. It's known that Totlebon had to finish some of Bissette's pages because they wouldn't have been done on time otherwise. I really just wish the editors had given them more time to do the job, um, and do a good job with it, even if the book was a little late.
I think it probably would have been better if they would have done have the set just do special issues. Just do like a couple issues here and there. That way he could have put like 100% of his effort into it, really like delved into on the detail, taken his time. Uh, that probably would have worked better, and then have like the fill-in artist just kind of do the other stuff here and there.
Overall, I'm going to give this issue a 4.75 out of 5 glowing Christian corpse skin waistcoats. I would have absolutely given it a 5 if not for all the art inconsistency on the book. I love how things from 10 issues ago are starting to pay off. I love how much foreshadowing we get here for both Swamp Thing and Constantine stories. And I love, love, love that Alan Moore was able to weave the editorial mandate that is Crisis on Infinite Earth into his book that he generally did not seem to like connecting with the DC universe very much. This is a masterclass on how to finesse things like that. There are elements of the book that Alan Moore would lay down that wouldn't be picked back up until years after Moore's run was complete. Writing wise, this book was a 5 of 5, no notes, no changes. The art was the real bummer here. I give it a 2.5 out of 5. When it's great, it's great. When it's not, it's dog shit. I don't use words like that often, but that's how I feel about this one.
I I'm gonna agree with the score on the 4.5. I thought it was pretty good. In fact, I probably giving it a higher score now after talking to you because like there's some things that I didn't think about at the time I was reading it, and even though I should have, I just the hard part with monthly comics, and even though the fact we're only doing these like, we're recording these like a week at a time a piece, but still, I feel like a lot of times these books are meant to be read consecutively, after it's been done. You pull out your stack of, 50, 60 issues, sit down, grab a beer, and then pop it open and just be like, I'm going to spend a day reading this entire run of comic books so that I understand every single nuance that is being put in here.
That's where omnibuses come on.
Yeah, well, I'm old school, so get over it. But so there's stuff that I forgot, and until we started talking about it, it didn't pop into my head that were like things that were laid down earlier on in the series. So that's going to bump the score back, up to like a 4.5. I'm not going to complain as much about the artwork because I feel like you do enough complaining on art for both of us. Like even if I was going to complain, I just sit back and be like, "You handle it. You're the master at it." Um, but like as a wannabe artist myself, like I get how tough it can be at times to do detail and to do stuff, and
Yeah,
so
I just want to point out I am not an artist. If anything, I would consider myself a writer. I have been a paid writer in the past, a professional writer. So my art skills are nil. But I know what I like in comic books. I know what I don't like, and that's what I'm expressing here is the things I like, the things I don't like. But it's not from an artist point of view; it's from a comic book fan point of view.
yes, and it should also be said sometime that it's like like before you complain, I feel like we need to put that thing of like the views expressed in this particular comment section are not representative of the entire comic book community.
You do plenty of the disclaimers on your own, so there's no need for a
I do,
disclaimer on the screen.
I do, but it's like yeah, I don't see the issues as much as you do. I sit down, I enjoy the ride, and this was a good ride. I actually liked it a lot. Um, Sometimes it was a little wordier for me, like, it felt like some of the parts elements kinda dragged out a little bit, and I was like, "Alright, let's get to the point, let's get to the point." But that's just I can get impatient at times, so I'm not gonna knock it down for that.
Welcome
Just
to 80s comics, I feel like.
yeah, like, all around, though, I felt it was pretty good. I thought the payoff was nice. I've been waiting for this. I feel like I didn't get the full payoff yet. I feel like the full payoff isn't coming until issue 50 when we finally get the big bad fight. Um, but this was a good setup for, like, what's to come. I was pleasantly surprised.
Alrighty. So that is going to bring us to the end of our show tonight.
So if that's it, then I just want to go ahead and I'm going to thank everyone for joining us tonight. We're glad that you're here with us and watching. You know, couldn't do this without you guys. So, we do this for the love of the comics medium. Also, I want to do a special thank you if Mr. Stephen Bissette is end up watching this and puts up with Randy's poor man attitude. Thank you, Mr. Bissette, for dealing with that.
Yes, and remind me after we get done with the show, there was a question you wanted to ask him. I will pass along your question on Blue Sky for you.
Okay.
Um, but please join us on our Patreon, where we have our Postcastes Chat book club for our members. We let our patrons get their say on the book, and we'll read some of those comments on the channel when we make these recordings. You can also find us at Blue Sky in the link down in the description. And I know for a fact that Mr. Bissette is on Blue Sky because he responded to one of my posts about this podcast. I don't know if he watched it. In fact, I don't think he did watch it. Otherwise, he would have probably responded and or blocked me before he did. But he did respond back to me.
Beautiful. And also, don't forget to check the description for the links to our Amazon affiliate page. This is the part where we're going to start selling, our products here. Um, you can pick up the book that we're reading tonight in various formats. As you see, my lovely co-host, the ever-present Randy, is showing you that's the Absolute Edition, I believe, isn't it?
Yes,
Yes, the Absolute Edition of Swamp Thing with the fuzzy cover that Randy likes to feel up constantly. He says it feels mossy.
it
I don't know
does.
why he's out feeling moss, but it's cool.
Here's our cover for this issue I'm trying to get the glare off, that we read today.
Yeah, good luck. It is. I mean, I got to admit they did a beautiful job on the coloring. Like it's so that was his cover. this was my cover tonight. I don't know again if you can see it without the glare. It's not bad. It's not, but it's like you definitely see the digital coloring did go above and beyond on that kind of stuff. Um, so yeah, like the absolute editions. There's collected editions. There's I don't believe they've done an omnibus yet, have they?
No, no. Although they should. I don't know why they haven't.
So in the future there may be an omnibus. There's all kinds of formats you can get this on Amazon. And the cool thing about that is if you use the affiliate, we're going to get some of that money, and it's not going to cost you anything extra.
Yep,
So it's not like they're going to like jack up the price so we get any of that. No, you still get the same price, and we get the little kickback. So
100%. Also, uh, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that bell. And if you can comment on this video as soon as you see it, that really helps us grow. We actually got a comment on the last video. That was really cool. Thank you to the person who commented. But those things can really help support and grow the channel. We want other comic book lovers to come on YouTube and have a community with us and discuss the comics that we love. And yeah, that's what we want to do. That would be amazing.
exactly, yes, those comments. Even if those comments are like, "Hey, the fat guy in the Superman shirt talks too much and needs to shut up and calm down," or something like, just throw something on there. I don't care what it is. Just tell us something.
Yes, insult
And
us.
then
That's totally fine.
yeah, I can handle it. I mean, I get it from my, lover slash co-host all the time. Um, so lastly, we want to give a big shout out to our editor, the Nacho King. You want to take this
Yeah,
next part?
yeah, we couldn't do this without you, buddy. And here's the thing. This as we're recording it, we are about to in 30 seconds we will tick over to the 2 hour mark of this recording. We did have to kind of stop in the middle to take care of some stuff real quick, so it's not going to end up being 2 hours long. But Nacho King is the guy that helps make sure that you don't have to sit through 2 hours of terrible video. You just have to sit through 2 hours of not, or an hour and a 10 hour and a half of not so great video.
Yeah, even an hour and a half seems like a hell of a lot. I mean, like, seems like he knocks them down to like 15, 20 minutes.
But this issue was such a big issue. So many cameos, so much going on, so much payoff. It's worth it.
Yeah, it definitely was. So yes, again, thank you, Nacho King. We appreciate you for everything you do.
Okay, okay, I got the sign off. May your phantom always be strange.
Ooh, I like that. All right, I'm cool with that one.
Very good. Thank you everybody for joining us. Have a good night.